please. Have your attention, please. Before we get into proceedings, I would ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So welcome everyone to the first of our semi-annual town hall meetings. This is back by popular demand. We have not had a meeting like this for, it's been a couple years since we had the information meetings. Up to this point we've had open board meetings, but as you know, they're structured where no participation by the community, followed by a Q&A. But this is one of general information. Hopefully the information we provide you today you'll find informative, but it's really designed for the Q&A portion where you get an opportunity to ask questions and things of interest to you. Before we start with the presentation, I'd like to offer some recognition for past and present committee and board members. To start off with, I'll identify the committee. If you are here, please rise, and at the end we would just like a round of applause and recognition for your service. We have an engineering committee headed up by Dan Gershkowitz. If you would stand, please. Transition committee headed up by Bob Rivers. The ARC, also Dan, he's for double duty. Covenants, Pete Lyons is the chair, along with Greg Pike as the vice chair. Education committee, Doug Giganto is the chair with Tom Montgomery. Health and fitness, Ava Lewis is the chair. The vice is Jerry Cox. Landscape committee, Meg Bowen and Sarah Galshak, who share co-chair women positions. The Marina Committee, Chris Pointer is the chair with Randy Garcia as the vice. Social Committee headed by Pam Scheuerman is the chairwoman and Bev Peters as the vice chair. Welcome Committee, Denise Skeels is the chair with Julie Dinnix as the vice. Gates and Cameras, the newly formed committee headed by Mark Bella. Docks and Slips, Rod Quisenberry is the chair, Don Crane is the vice, and Rules and Regulations, Fred Irvin is the chair, and Sue Garcia is the vice. If I called all the names of the people who I've called, if you would stand up, please, just to be recognized by the committee. These committees form the governance aspect of the community, and we're certainly grateful for their volunteer service. Next, I'd like special recognition for our previous board members. Two of the former board members are here today. Dave Euler is not in attendance today, I don't believe. So, start off with Dave Binnix. So it's a small token of our appreciation. Dave was on the board and was in my position. That is, he was the chairman of the board during his tenure.
I'm not going to have an opportunity if they give me a mic not to speak. So, but I just wanted to give accolades back to this board. This board was really a lot of work went into selecting the board that you now see up here. The untold amount of hours that they and our management team with Gary put into to doing their job is absolutely unbelievable. And I would just like to express a special thank you to them and the work that they do for our benefit. Thank you.
And next to Barbara Conley, who is a former board member and was the secretary who prepared the minutes.
Electric personality.
So thank you. thank you for this, and thank you for the acknowledgement. I do appreciate it sincerely. I know you might find this hard to believe, but I truly miss being on the board. What an honor it was to me to get to serve on the board to represent our community. To me, that was such a vote of confidence, and I want to thank you all for that. And I just encourage you, it's a great experience. So the next time they have an election, I encourage you to be a part of the community because it's a good experience.
There is a special recognition I'd like to bring to your attention at this time. It has a very sad note to it. It's for John Morris, who passed away last Saturday. He had been ill for some time, and his health deteriorated rather rapidly after coming home from the hospital, and he passed away. John was instrumental in a variety of things. He was the chair of the advisory committee way back when, many years ago. He served in various aspects involving compliance and the rules and regulations. Much of what we have it can be attributed to John and his analysis of the rules and regulations and choosing the right words. He's a lawyer, so he didn't have any trouble doing that. He contributed a great deal to the governance side of what goes on in the community today. So I would ask all of you to keep John and his family in your thoughts and prayers and offer your prayers for his soul.
Ron, the service is this Friday at 11 a.m. at the First United Methodist Church on Thompson Bridge Road for anyone.
If you didn't hear that, the funeral service is at First United Methodist Church, Thompson Bridge Road. It's 11 o'clock on Friday. So moving into the presentation, these are some of the community highlights, just things that you might find interesting. 41 new homes sold in Q1 of this year. There are some things that, this is a very generous and giving community, and you can see just by the fact that a rowing machine for the fitness center was donated anonymously. Standing in the fence, that was not donated, that was us, we paid for that, but it needed to be completed, and I know that made a lot of people happy if you live on Majestic Oak. The shade stations was a donation by the tennis club. We have two active 501c3s, one is the Veterans Club, the other is the Community Fund. The Community Fund divides their contributions to things within Crestwind and activities outside of Crestwind according to their own charter. We have no influence over that. It's according to their own charter or their own bylaws. And the other is the 501c3 is the Veterans Club, which focuses its attention on various veterans activities. Some can be internal, but much of what they do, because of just the nature of their work, is benefits the veterans outside of Crestwind. Also, the farm stand improvement of the garden amenity, they've expended a number of hours and a number of dollars to improve that situation. It just highlights kind of the giving nature of what goes on in the community, and I thought you might find those things interesting. Now, these are some of the board of director highlights. You can read through these. There's a few in here that I'd like to highlight. The first being the club independence. There was an extraordinary amount of control over the clubs by the board of directors, and it was a lot of detail went into how many members it takes to form a club. We want to know who the officers are. There was just a variety of things, reporting on a quarterly basis. That went away, and it went away primarily for risk and liability issues. We had the legal advice saying, pass the independence of the clubs. Let them operate on their own. Let them be independent, and we exercise a minimal control over them. The other is well, why we're here today, the spring and fall town hall meetings. There was always been some interest in how do we find out what's going on. Well, the best way to do it is to present a presentation like this and give you an opportunity in the Q&A side to get an idea of what's going on in the community. If you look at this improved delivery process for the Homeowners Association governing documents electronically, what that means is getting information out on changes to policy and procedure, any manual changes can be done electronically, and that is considered adequate to inform you. In the whole community, we only have, I believe, six households that do not have an active email address, which is a very small number considering how big the community is. So that allows us to inform you electronically of what's going on in the community, and to provide you that legal requirement to inform you that when there are changes in governing documents. We also use, of course, the bulletin board. There are other things out here that direct you to that, and you can always, if you're one of those 6 people, can always pick up the changes here at the desk. But if that doesn't happen, we either mail it or hand deliver it. With that, I would turn this over to Debbie Ellis, who will give you some information on financials.
No, I can yell. Thanks, Frank. Good afternoon, everyone. What we wanted to do is just give you a really quick financial update, and what we chose to do was compare first quarter of this year to first quarter of last year. The final sales number for last year was 122 homes were sold for the entire year. If you look at the list, this is first quarter 18 versus first quarter 17, and our thanks to Bill Bond for adding in the percentage changes for those of you whose minds work that way. Some do, some don't. So as you can see, our income is up, which we really like. Expenses are down, and let me preface that one of the reasons that expenses are down is because some of the Pine Straw bills have been paid in the first quarter of last year. They have not been paid in the first quarter of this year. So that accounts for some of the difference that we have. The only area where expenses are up is in administration, and that is because the more people we have, the more expense we incur with insurance, the office expenses back there. The audit for last year was completed earlier this year, and so the bill is in there. So there's a few other expenses that have come in, but other than that, all of our spending, we're really keeping a hold on it. And my thanks, I can't say enough for Mr. Hewlin, who really keeps an eye on the expenses. He always gets quotes, and he gets the best deal for us that he can possibly get. A wheeler dealer, to say the least. The capital reserves, as you can see, are up. And the culture loan, of course, is up with the $100,000 that Bob puts in. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to contact me. I'm in the book, I'm in the directory. Give me a call or send me an email. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving along to Board of Directors priorities. You may look at this and say, well, that's not too many priorities, but it is just one aspect of the work. Excuse me. The 4 areas highlighted here represent about $1.5 million, which is slightly less than half of our total budget for the year. If there's money to save, that's likely where we're to save it. If you see the first one up there, it says landscape scope for future RFP. Meg Bone from the landscape committee is heading that up, and that RFP means request for proposal, trying to define what sort of work we would like to have done as we move forward. We may want to change what we're doing. There could be some cost savings in that area, and so she's been looking at that and working that project. And also the transfer of control. There are two aspects of this, what we've been calling transition. One is the transfer of control, and the other, the transition, which is something we've been doing all along, just trying to move eventually from a developer-controlled association to a homeowner-controlled association. And what we're talking about here is just that transfer of control. Next slide, please. This is what we're looking at when we talk about that. You can take a look at that. The key element, and the one that's probably gotten the most attention recently, is item number 2. We've been advised that we want to accelerate this movement of control from the 2019 initial target date to sometime in 2018. That's this year. So the transfer of control, that is the management side of things, will be done in 2018. We had our first meeting with the developer who approached us. We weren't certainly eager to say, let's step in, but it's one point I should make is the developer is in a position to move this control of the community to the homeowners association whenever he chooses. It could be tomorrow. Now, it's not like it happened like that, but legally he can do that. But we've been approached to accelerate the process, as I said, from 2019 to 2018. The board took the various actions that you see up here. There were two working groups that were elevated to committee level. That is the engineering work group headed by Dan Gershkowitz, and the boat slip committee to figure out how we handle the whole marina operation, and that's headed up by Rod Quisenberry and Don Crane. The transfer of priorities, and this is where the board takes a direct hand in getting us from developer-controlled association to homeowner-controlled association. And these are the things we're looking at. These are not the only things, but these are some of the key elements. Much of what you see here is what would be termed unilateral. The developer simply allows these things to happen. The forgiving of the loan is it just occurs at some point. And done that yet, but that's one of our priorities and goals. As opposed to the transition where there is some give and take, some negotiation, that's a different function altogether, and would require us, in all cases, to consult with our legal advisor to be sure that we're on the right track if we're entering any type of bilateral type negotiations. Next slide, please. These are the things that we term bilateral. This would be the negotiation process where we give something, perhaps the developer gives something in negotiations different from the unilateral side of things where we don't have to do anything on the relief of the loan. We're just here. And the developer will say, the loan is relieved, and that's the end of that. Doesn't require any action. These could require some action, and they require some negotiations, possibly some contractual negotiations. This is where we rely on all the information that we've been provided by the transition committee to help us develop a list of priorities, and then ultimately for legal advice on how to approach the developer. These issues come up from time to time when you look at